Hello, and welcome to probably not the first video in a while because I'm recording this video before I've uploaded a video that I've already recorded and haven't made a voiceover for. For some reason, I'm too lazy to do that, and we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. Anyways, this is a Nerf Hyperfire. This is the original color of the blaster, so you can tell obviously it's been painted. This is matte black. That's gunmetal gray, along with those two side panels are gunmetal gray. Those used to be blue. And I have a few 3D printed pieces over here that go up front, just because I don't want to say I hate it, but I very much dislike the front thing that the Hyperfire had going on. I don't know why this thing keeps focusing. I guess you guys are just going to have to deal with that. Anyways, first steps first, take the few screws I put in here to close the shell together so that I could paint it. So this is a Phillips head number 0. And that is the screwdriver I've used for pretty much all of the Nerf guns I've ever modded. For some reason with the Hyperfire, they decided to use slightly bigger screws. But obviously this is a flathead, not a Phillips head. But the Phillips head that I have is the right size for the head of the screws, but it's not the right size to fit into the hole. So that is very nice. Anyways, I think there's a screw here. Maybe not. Nope, there's definitely no screw there. If there is, it's very loose. I know for sure there's two up here. And I think I'm going to have to get a different screwdriver because that's just going to strip them out. So, be right back. I'm back with a Phillips head number 2, as well as this little screwdriver I got with a model kit. If you are allergic to lollipops, now would be a good time to leave, because I will be placing one right here for the rest of the video. So have fun with that. So as you can see, this one does not fit in here, but when I know this is a lot bigger than these screws are, but it actually fits kind of nice. So this one, probably going to be the one I'm going to use. For some reason they used regular Nerf screws on the inside, I'm pretty sure. But then again, Nerf always uses a great assortment of screws. Like, I'm pretty sure the Rival line has their own specific length and thread pitch of screw. I don't know why they couldn't just make it universal. I get, like, maybe early on they were trying to figure stuff out, but you'd think by now they would have it figured out and they wouldn't keep changing it up. That would be very nice. Just to say, this is the type of screw that I need for Nerf guns. So I will buy only this type of screw. And I get that there's different brands, but I'm not even talking about different brands. I'm just talking about Nerf right now. They have so many different screws. Some of them are longer, which I get. Sometimes you do need a longer screw. But like the old blasters, they had sometimes like 4 different length screws in it. Like, do you really need that many different lengths? Maybe a long one for like high stress areas, and then a short one for, maybe not a short one, but a medium one. So I guess at most you would need 3 different lengths. The medium one for regular areas, and then in rare circumstances, a short one where there is not much room. In case you guys do not have eyeballs and have not spotted the literal pink flywheel cage in here, you should probably guess by now that this thing is already modded. Only because, so the Nerf Hera in one of my previous videos that I modded, kind of off camera as well, I didn't actually mod it at all on camera. I just showed you a really crappy video of me explaining what it is in a car and just showing it off. That was my first ever, goodbye screws. That was my first ever Nerf mod to do with electrical stuff. This is my first ever full auto mod. And on the last mod, I used a MOSFET. Only because I was following a video from Outer Darts, and I figured I'd need one here as well. If you don't know what a MOSFET is, from my understanding, so I don't know what regular Nerf switches are, but these are 10 amp switches, I believe, micro switches. And when you put a giant battery in it like this is a 40 to 50C 2.2, and it's a 3-cell battery. When you put a big battery on it like that, and when you have motors that draw more current, I think I'm saying that right, it will basically burn out the switches. So what the MOSFET does is it takes all that, the voltage that's coming in, and it reduces it to the switches, which will save you from burning them out faster. Now you can get 21 amp switches. However, I've heard that these are 130 motors. I've heard that the 180 motors will burn out even a 21 amp switch. So basically what I did is this is all from Out of Darts. I got 16 gauge wire and heat shrink and wire connectors just because I'm stupid. A nice pink Hyperfire specific canted flywheel cage. Is canted the right word? I don't know. Either way, the motors, instead of just being straight, they're tilted like that. And I guess that puts a spin on the dart and it makes it more accurate. And I got these worker flywheels, which it said that this specific cage needs these flywheels to actually fit, or the flywheels don't fit in there, I guess. I have two, I think they're Valkyrie motors. I could be wrong. You can see I have these wired up to spin opposite directions as they should be. And then the wires come through here. And then basically what's going on up here. So these are the motor wires right here. These motor wires go, positive motor wire goes to the, I'm trying to remember which one's which. Because there's a normally open, a common, and a normally closed on these switches. So basically I'm just going to explain this really dumbly. The positive motor, which it doesn't really matter, positive or negative, goes to the center post on this switch. And then the negative, you can see, is looped back around and goes to the, that is a normally closed. So the center must be common. Okay, let's just say the center is common. So the negative is going to the normally closed, and the negative to the battery is also going to the normally closed. The negative for this motor is also going to the normally closed, and the positive for this motor is going to the normally open. What this motor is that is the full auto system that these gears hook up to these gears, which drive this belt. And instead of a pusher, this belt is what feeds the darts through into the flywheels. Okay, so to get back on track, the positive to the battery is going to the normally open of this switch. And then there is a kind of like a jumper from the common to the common on this one. And then this switch has absolutely nothing on the normally closed. So if you didn't get that, I'm not going to explain it again in this video anyways. Once I've done a few more of these mods, I'll be more familiar with it and I'll be able to explain it a lot better. And at that point, I will give you a actual decent wiring guide, because I am actually going to be doing a strive pretty soon, and I might wire that up on camera now that I know what I'm doing. So anyways, to put these switches in, I took some epoxy putty, which is the stuff you like rip off of that tube and mix together with your fingers. I just put a big glob of it right there, and I had to grind down the shell right here a little bit to put this switch in. As you can see, everything fits nicely underneath this cover. Same thing here. I actually made a bridge because these wires need to go underneath that bridge. And then this putty is, and I literally just screwed 2 screws in each switch into that putty. So that's how the switches are connected. And speaking of switches, I just remembered I need to go get some lube. I'm back with a few more friends than I said I was going to bring. X-Acto knife, sandpaper, handheld sandpaper, lube, and this is silicone lube. And I was told by the internet to use this and to also not use an aerosol, sure. And there's also another type of lube that you're not supposed to use. So now what we have to do is start putting these switches in, not switches, triggers. You put these triggers in. So I'm going to take this off, and this will give you a better view of this little setup I got going on here. Okay. Now these triggers are painted gold, and I didn't try my best, because my best would have been using tape. I slightly tried to not get paint on the parts that move, just because I know that's going to mess it up. And as you can see, as you don't see, it is not messing it up at all. So I'm kind of dumb, but anyways, this part right here, I'm going to do a little bit of sanding on, just to get it back to that original tolerance. So I guess let's start off with this piece with lube. I don't think I actually have to unscrew it, but maybe I will. The reason these have absolutely no lube on them, I know you probably can't tell that from the video, is this blaster is kind of dirty, as is most used blasters that you buy online. And I took everything completely apart, and I used actually a paintbrush, some Dawn dish soap, and my bare hands. Look at that. You guys saw I just opened up this lube, and you see how much this can is filled? That's a scam. They straight up scammed me. It even looks kind of weird. I guess it'll still work fine, but I don't know. It's kind of weird. But anyways, I took everything apart and like just really deep cleaned it in the sink. Put it anywhere you think that there's a moving part, and that'll save your plastic from literally sanding itself apart, or it'll delay it. So now let's put some lube on this piece. All the pieces that I sanded definitely need a little bit of lube on them. If any of you don't like the word lube, this probably isn't the video for you. I bought an Aeon Pro, which is a dart zone blaster, the other day, or I bought it a few weeks ago actually. And they put so much lube on that thing. It was like, do you want some blaster with your lube? Because yeah, there's just a lot of lube on this thing. So basically, I want lube everywhere. It's going to make contact, like I said, but trying not to get lube on the part where your finger's going to go, because then the person who's going to use this will have lube all over their house after they use it. So that's looking pretty good. And then the next piece I'm going to do is this rev trigger. So this is the mag release, in case you couldn't tell. Obviously it releases the magazine. And there's also another piece that we need to put in, which is this piece, which I tried to put as little paint on this as I could, specifically because the mag slides into here, and the more paint that's on there, the harder the mag's going to be to slide in there, and it's just going to wear off anyway, so I don't even know why I painted it, but I just wanted it to look good. Starting off, this piece slides right here, and as you can tell, before I put this in, you kind of want to depress this thing, and then slide this piece right in place. There we go. Okay, now one thing that I've more recently found out about is the older versions of the Longshot actually have a plate that is screwed in right here along the side of the mag well, if that's what this place is called. And that prevents a lot of the slop in the magazine. And I see that this has these two bars right here, so I'm interested to know if they serve the same purpose as that plate that's usually here, or sometimes here, or if adding a plate in here would help it. I don't think there is a lot of slop in this magazine well in general, but that is something that I could test in the future. This piece right here, so if we take this out, this is the trigger lock, and this prevents you from pulling the trigger if the rev trigger is not pulled, because if you just straight up pull the trigger on blasters that have a pusher, it'll push your dart partially into the flywheels, and then when you pull the rev trigger, it won't like do what it's supposed to do, and it's going to jam. This, for some reason, is like built in, because usually there's a separate spring for this rev trigger, or for any rev trigger, but the spring is actually on this piece, which is also kind of interesting. So you kind of can't do away with the trigger lock without modifying this to some extent, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I just think it's interesting that they did that. So, like I did with the last one, we're just going to do a little bit of sanding on this. You can. Just put a big glob on here. Glob, glob. Hello, I am the person who assembled my Aeon Pro. I am putting the most amount of lube on this. By the way, I don't even know if that's the right pronunciation, Aeon Pro, because it's like A-E-O-N Pro. That's how it's spelled. So I assume that's how it's said as well, but I could be completely wrong. So if anyone wants to correct me or tell me that I'm saying it the right way, you can go ahead. So with these two switches, when I installed them, I tried to get the lever as close as I could to this little piece that pushes the actual switch. And the reason for that is the less you have to pull this switch, the faster your timing is going to be. So if you can just click this on a hair trigger, then that will make you a lot faster. Now before we do that, I'm going to reinstall this plate. And this plate not only keeps the rev trigger in, not only keeps the this trigger lock in, forgot what I called it before, it also helps hold my switch in, which I know it's already being held in by 2 screws, but everything helps. So what I was going to say is, before we put the actual trigger in, we need to put this piece on, because there's a screw for this that is underneath here. And before we put that piece on, we need to put this piece on. So this is a perfect time for me to show you my little 3D printed piece. So it's essentially, it replaces the normal grip and it replaces the barrel. And instead of the grip being way down here, which that's another thing I didn't like, it was in line with the bottom of this, it is now way up in line with this. So it just makes it a lot, well, it's not in line with this, I think it's a little bit down, but either way it just makes it a lot nicer. And the main feature of this is that it lets you put a not a 1730 seconds but a 1930 seconds brass barrel, not specifically in here, but I have a 3D printed sleeve that goes into here, and then the brass barrel goes into that sleeve. The reason I needed a sleeve is because the 1930 seconds brass does not fit in here. The inner diameter of this is bigger than the outer diameter of the brass. So I need that sleeve to make up for that difference. This cover falls onto the floor before you can put it in right here. The only difference in this actual cover, because with the front of this, all you had to do is take it apart and take all these orange pieces off. With this cover, what you have to do is there's a big bit on the bottom here that sticks out, and it comes out like this. And there's actually a crease line right here. If you cut perfectly along that crease line, this piece will line up pretty good with this piece, and it should just go into place. So yeah, that's how that works. And put the trigger in after we do sanding. Let's put some along here. Basically anything that's not visible. I guess you don't need lube on the, well, maybe you do need lube on the part that has a spring on it. I don't know. Anything that's not the part that you put your finger on, probably put lube on it, I would assume. And I also just completely filled up this screw hole with lube, so that's going to be pretty nice. Let's get that out. maybe redistribute that. Okay, I think that's probably enough. So obviously this is a spring. And then you just have to line the spring up with that post, compress it a little bit to get it into that post, and then you can put your little screw back in, and you can see the whole setup. So, mag release, and you see you cannot press the trigger until you pull the rev trigger. It's kind of sticking a little bit, that's weird. So, rev trigger, trigger. 3D printed piece on. And then we can put this cover on. Probably. We might be able to put this cover on. This piece does a pretty good job already of holding this 3D printed piece in because, like I said before, there's parts of the 3D print that slide into these two little L shapes. So they're being held in by that, being held in by this. And also, there's 3 different screw holes that are going to be screwing into here, which I have to pre-drill after I put this together. Now, this is the sleeve I was talking about. It is a 1932 brass, and the reason I'm using 1932 instead of 1732 is because 1732 is for spring-powered blasters. When you have a spring-powered blaster, basically a sealed plunger system is important, and the less room you have for air to go around the dart, so the tighter the barrel fits against the dart, the better, because then the air has to push the dart out instead of being able to go around it. Now the problem is if it's too tight, then obviously the dart's not going to have enough force to be pushed out of the barrel. This, however, is only for accuracy. It is not for performance, because the performance comes with the flywheels. The flywheels are obviously not a sealed plunger system. And the flywheels, after the dart leaves them, needs a smooth path. So the purpose of this barrel is hopefully to provide the darts that exit it with more accuracy instead of just being grabbed by the flywheels and flung. Now the smoothness of the barrel also adds to the to reduce the drag that would normally be put on it by the roughness of either plastic, like this 3D printed piece is not really rough, but it's kind of rough, or any other plastic barrel that you would have. So that's why I have a 1932 brass instead of a 1732 for this flywheel blaster. Now this piece, I designed this and this by myself, and I will be selling this barrel for the Hyperfire on Etsy. It'll come with one of these, but it will not come with a 1932 brass, and obviously nothing else in the blaster is included. It's only this piece, and obviously the other piece, and I'll probably include some screws because I have recently figured out how to buy them online, basically. Figured out what size they are. Now, I don't know if you've noticed this yet, but this is a little divot because this piece is so close to the barrel. I needed to put that little divot in there, otherwise this piece would not fit in there. So this should fit snugly in here. And then that little front barrel piece should go just like that. And you might also notice that this is painted and this is not. That is not just me being lazy. This is a very snug fit, and I want as little paint to be in here as possible so that it doesn't like force itself apart and break. So that's why I only want the front of this thing painted. This rev trigger still is sticking, so I'm definitely going to have to take it back apart and do something about that. But it's only like if you just tap it, it's fine. But if you push it in all the way, it sticks. And then most of the time it releases. However, I did have a problem with that originally, like when I first bought this thing. So quite possibly, the spring might be worn out. Anyways, what we need to do next is pre-drill these holes. Alright, so those screws are not holding up. I do have another plan, but for now, I just want to shoot this thing, honestly. So let's put the battery tray cover on. Let's put the 2 LiPos in, which, by the way, it only does run 1 LiPo at a time. We're not going crazy. I don't want to blow something up. So, all I'm doing is confirming that they both fit in here. Number 1 and number 2. And this is just so if you're, on the move, you get a backup battery, you can plug that thing right in, keep going. Alright, you know what? This thing might just not fit in here, which would be very delightful. Alright, so 1 definitely fits in there, but 2... See, I thought the 2 would fit, but then I never actually closed the battery cover. And it looks like 2 do fit, just not very well. Okay. Look at this thing. It's blowing on. If anything, you just got a cool fan now. So I have 2 18-round mags, and we're going to make sure this shoots properly, even though I'm pretty sure it does. We're going to find out though. There's the rotor you're sticking, which I will fix. Not really sure if the feeding issue is with the magazine or with the belts, but either way, overall it shoots pretty good. It might shoot better as like a burst rather than full auto, but it's definitely a lot better than stock performance. Alright guys, I'm just about to ship this off to the customer, but before I do, I wanted to show you the finished paint job. I did not end up weathering the blaster on camera, just because I've done it in a few other videos, and there's like probably hundreds of videos of showing how to do that. So here's the finished product. The customer wanted a Z and a triangle on here, and that's in gold, and I outlined it in a silver. And then I did the weathering all over the blaster. Get a little bit of a closer look at that. I don't know where you guys can see. But we're going to do one more thing, and that is a accuracy test to see if this barrel actually does help. Now I'm not going to do the accuracy test without the barrel. However, when I do my strife, I'll do the same thing with and without the barrel, and then at that point we'll be able to see if the 1932 barrel actually does help. Alright, so we're going to do that one more time. I don't think the batteries in this are completely charged up, but either way it should give us somewhat of a estimate of how the darts will perform. So that was a lot better of a spread. You can see some went further, some went not as far, but they're all really tight in there, and none of them really went way off to the side. So I think that's kind of a success. I don't know how this performs stock because I never tested it stock, but either way, that's going to be the end of this video. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll get that strike video out soon.